Fort Lauderdale dentist is charged in connection with the 2014 murder of his brother-in-law, who was a professor at Florida State University. 45-year-old Charles Adelson was taken into custody at his home this morning. He's accused of participating in a murder-for-hire plot against his brother-in-law, Dan Markle. Attorneys say they have audio of him discussing the aftermath of the killing with his former girlfriend. The professor was shot twice in the head outside of his home. Adelson is facing several charges, including first-degree murder.
Welcome to Crime Circus. Today we have an interrogation in court. Not by a detective, but by the defense attorney and prosecution. The woman on the stand's brother and his girlfriend have been arrested for murder of her husband. Do you think Wendi was involved too? Let's see what Wendi has to say for herself.
Okay, Ms. Adelson, if you come up to the witness stand, please. Before you have a seat, we're going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Respond to the clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please have a seat. Ms. Kappelman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name is Wendi Adelson, Wendiadelson.
Ms. Adelson, where do you currently live?
I currently live in Miami Beach.
And are you here today pursuant to a state subpoena?
Yes, I am.
And do all state subpoenas confer immunity?
I don't know if all state subpoenas confer immunity, but this one does.
Okay, and do you believe that your subpoena is special or different from other state subpoenas?
I don't believe it's special or different, so I suppose they all carry immunity.
All right, and does the immunity conferred upon you by the subpoena mean that you can never be prosecuted associated with this case?
That's right.
That's what you think it means?
That's what I think it means.
Okay. And do you think, isn't it true that it's use and derivative use immunity? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, but not complete immunity from prosecution. Do you agree with that?
That's different than what you just asked before. So, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
All right, so what I'm trying to allow the jury to understand is what sort of immunity you have. What is your understanding of what it means for you to have immunity pursuant to the state subpoena?
So I have derivative and use immunity. And so in the future, a prosecutor couldn't use what I say here today against me.
Correct. But you could be prosecuted. Just nothing you said here today could be used against you in that prosecution. Do you agree with that?
I suppose so.
Okay. Have you made any sort of special deal with the state attorney's office or with any law enforcement or government agent?
No.
Do you know of any specific gifts that your brother gave this defendant during their relationship?
I don't.
What about after their relationship? Were there gifts after the conclusion of their relationship?
I am not aware of any gifts between them.
All right, let's go to the day of Dan Markel's murder. What were you doing that day?
I was at home that morning. I was working on a couple of pieces of writing. I was waiting. I remember the Geek Squad was coming to fix my television. I think
was that the same television that your brother had purchased for you as a divorce gift because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman?
It was the television that my brother had bought for me.
All right. On the way to run your errands, did you go by the crime scene?
No.
On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Trescott?
I did.
All right, so you did turn off of Centerville onto Trescott.
I did.
All right, and when you encountered a roadblock, what did you assume the problem was there?
I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. There was some tape, and it looked like the road was blocked off, and so I just turned around and went back and went up Benton.
And had there been an electrical storm that morning?
I didn't remember an electrical storm, but in the summertime there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal.
All right. And you weren't concerned based on that experience that there could be something going on at previously your marital home?
Absolutely not.
And your ex-husband, Dan Markel, had your children at that time, right?
No, he did not.
Okay, so you had your children at that time?
No, my children were at preschool at that time.
Right, but who took them to preschool that day?
Danny would have taken them to preschool.
Okay. So it was his day. He was killed on his parenting day.
It was the day he would have brought them to preschool, and I would have picked them up.
All right. Did they spend the night with him the night before?
They did.
And you hadn't seen your children yet that day when you encountered the roadblock?
On Friday, no.
Okay. And were you on the phone when you encountered the roadblock? If you remember?
Was.
Do you remember who you were speaking to?
I do.
Who was that? You don't have to say the name, but just what type of person was that?
He was a friend. I hadn't caught up with him a long time. He'd moved to England, so I was probably a little distracted talking and catching up with an old friend.
And when you encountered, at the time that you encountered the roadblock or shortly thereafter, did you call the daycare?
No.
Did you call Dan Markel?
No.
Did you do anything to reach out to any of the players that we've talked about in this case?
No.
Did you communicate to anyone that there was a roadblock?
I didn't. I would have had no reason to do that.
Was Dan Markel scheduled to leave town the day after he was killed?
I believe so.
Where was he going?
He was going to New York.
And that's where he had a girlfriend?
That's where his girlfriend lived.
Do you know how the killers knew that Dan Markel was planning to leave town the next day?
I have no idea.
You didn't relay that information to anyone?
Absolutely not.
When you left the residence and encountered the roadblock, where were you headed?
When I left my residence,
Mm-hmm.
I was headed to ABC Liquors to get an item that was requested for a Stock the Bar party I was supposed to go to that Friday night.
And what was that item?
I'm sorry?
What was the item?
It was bourbon.
What type of bourbon?
Bullet bourbon. The
And did
invitation
you-
had asked specifically to bring a bottle of Bullet bourbon, so I went to the store and asked them where I could find that.
And the bottle of Bullet bourbon was in your vehicle when law enforcement came to interview you about this case?
Right. When I told law enforcement they could search my vehicle and signed away all my rights, yeah.
After the murder of Dan Markel, was it your practice to tell people, just acquaintances and peripheral people in your life, that he had been involved in an accident?
I don't believe so.
Do you know whether that was something that your brother told people?
I have no idea what my brother told people.
Did you ever hear your brother, Charlie Adelson, tell someone Dan Markel was involved in an accident?
No, I've never heard that. I was just thinking, law enforcement told me when they were interviewing me that I wasn't supposed to tell anyone what happened until it was released, but...
And that was just the day of?
That was the day of.
Okay. Did you or your children benefit financially from your husband's death?
Absolutely not.
Did your husband have a life insurance policy?
He did have a life insurance policy.
And what was the value of that policy?
I don't know what the value of it was at the time. I do know that his sister's a custodian of that life insurance policy, and I pay taxes on that money every year, but we don't receive any of it.
What was the value of it at the time of your husband's death?
It was $1 million.
Not $2 million?
$1 million for each child.
$2 million. All right. And did you believe prior to your husband's murder that you were the custodian of that money for the benefit of the boys?
No, we were divorced, so I was the custodian while we were married. But once we were divorced, I was no longer the custodian.
So you were aware that he had designated someone else to do that job? You didn't inquire through your attorney about challenging the designation of the sister as the custodian of that money?
I wasn't trying to challenge the designation, no.
Do you have access personally to that money?
No.
All right. What about a 401k? Did your ex-husband have a 401k when he died?
I believe he did.
All right. And are you the custodian of that money for the benefit of the boys?
I am. That's how I pay the taxes.
All right. Did he have a pension?
I don't know.
Social Security benefits?
I don't know if he had Social Security benefits. As survivors, my children receive Social Security benefits.
$4,800 a month, right?
That's right.
Deferred compensation fund?
I don't remember.
$217,000. Does that sound familiar?
I don't remember.
What about the IRA? Did he have an IRA?
I really don't know.
$100,000?
It's very possible.
What about a checking account?
I don't know if I assume he had a checking account.
$15,000 in there, right?
Wouldn't go to us, but sure, I imagine he had a checking account.
It wouldn't go to you and the boys? Where did it go?
Funeral expenses?
Okay. All right, and have you ever returned to Tallahassee to live after, you said you left about 2 days after the death?
I've never come back to live. I came back to give a talk, I think twice. And then I came back for a friend's wedding. I came back for a friend's bar mitzvah, so probably came back 4 or 5 times since.
Right, but the question
not
is to reside.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kaufman. I haven't lived here
Okay.
since I left.
You've lived steady in South Florida since that date.
I have lived in South Florida.
Okay, and who has full custody of your 2 boys?
Me.
Did you change their legal names about a month or so after the murder?
No, not a month or so after the murder, no.
Okay. When was it done? Even sooner than that?
No, absolutely not. When I tried to put my children in school and their faces had been unblurred on CNN and all across social media,
I'm not
I
sorry
thought
to
we were
interrupt
in
you, but if you'll answer my question is, when were the boys' names changed?
the boys' names were changed after I wrote a letter to Danny's family explaining why I was
Ma'am,
changing their names.
When were their names
About
changed?
a year after.
Okay, and that was when they were legally changed, July 6, 2015?
I don't
Sound
remember
right?
the date, but if you have it, that sounds correct.
Okay, so they were legally changed on that date, but just a month or so after the murder, when you were enrolling them in school, is when they effectively had their names changed.
That is not true.
And what did you change their names from and to?
I changed their last name from their father's last name to mine.
From Markel to Adelson.
That is correct.
And did you also drop the middle name of one of your boys that was a tribute to his paternal side?
It was a tribute to both families.
Did you drop it?
I did. I lost an honor to both families that day, yes.
Do you want the culpable parties in this murder held accountable?
Absolutely.
And even if it involved your own family?
Absolutely.
Do you recall giving an interview with law enforcement on the day that your ex-husband, was murdered?
I recall sitting with law enforcement for 6 hours. Yes, I recall.
And did you tell law enforcement something different in that interview about the culpability of your family?
I'm sure while I sat for 6 hours completely traumatized that I said all kinds of things.
All right, and was one of the things you said while you sat for 6 hours completely traumatized that you wanted the culpable parties held accountable unless it was your family?
I don't believe I phrased it like that, and I think you're taking my words out of context, but sure.
But sure?
But sure what?
No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Ms. Adelson, this is all about you, isn't it?
Excuse me?
This is all about you, right?
I was called to be a witness and I'm testifying, so I don't understand the question. Is it a question?
There's about 100 people in this courtroom, right?
There are people in the courtroom.
Possibly thousands watching, right?
I have no idea who's watching.
And it's all because of your failed marriage, right?
I disagree with that.
You disagree that your ex-husband is dead because of your family.
Yes, I disagree.
These jurors are here for weeks doing their civic duty because of your marriage, right?
No.
Katie's going through this ordeal because of that marriage, right?
No.
Dan Markel's parents are going through absolute misery because of your failed marriage. Isn't that right?
No, that's incorrect.
Well, let's talk about the marriage. You and Professor Markel, you met when you were in law school. You told that to Miss Kaplan. And it was a whirlwind romance, right? Right?
It was not a whirlwind romance, no.
It led to a wedding, February 26th of 2006. You had a big wedding in Boca Raton, right?
Did we get married on February 26, 2006? Is that the question? Yes.
In Boca Raton.
In Boca Raton, Florida.
And it wasn't a small wedding. It was a big wedding.
There were many people in attendance.
Right. In this marriage, it led to 2 children, right? Your 2 boys.
Are you asking me if I have 2 boys?
Yes.
Yes.
Professor Markel, he was a great father, wasn't
He was a very good father, yes.
he? Those boys were his world, right?
As well as his work, yes.
And they adored him too, didn't they?
Absolutely.
Now, this marriage started to fall apart, right?
It did.
But there were problems from the very beginning, weren't there? Right?
Are you asking me, what is the very beginning? The very beginning of when we got married?
Literally at the wedding.
There were problems before we got married.
All right, so at the wedding, and the government asked you about kosher law, right?
About what, I'm sorry?
Keeping kosher.
About keeping kosher, yes.
Right?
The government
In your
law.
wedding, at your wedding was the groom's family, the Markel family, and they are more strict than your family and friends about keeping kosher.
They do not keep kosher.
Wasn't that one of the problems in your marriage, that Professor Markel was very insistent about keeping kosher?
About his kosher rules, but those are different than his family's.
So you're saying that it wasn't a problem at the wedding, that there were people from the groom's side of the family that were there that strictly keep kosher, that they were told that it was going to be kosher food, but it actually wasn't.
So there was a misunderstanding about whether the food was going to be kosher style or more in adherence with kosher law. There was a miscommunication about that.
So you had people that strictly keep kosher eating non-kosher food, which is a big deal.
That actually is not what happened. Danny was upset that it was kosher style and not strictly adhering to kosher law. So he was disappointed.
So there's problems right from the beginning.
That was a problem at our wedding, yeah.
Fast forward now to September 10th, 2012. Professor Markel, he's away on a business trip, right?
Yes.
He's in New York City at New York University, right?
I believe so, yes.
And he's doing a presentation.
I don't know what he was doing.
Your husband at the time was in New York to give a presentation. You knew that, right?
I knew he was in New York. I didn't know if he was attending a conference or giving a presentation, but he was in New York for work.
Now, you had not communicated with him for 2 days.
I really don't remember.
You text him at around 2:30 in the afternoon, right? Right before he's about to do the presentation.
I really don't remember.
But you do remember dropping the bomb on him, don't you? Telling him that you wanted a divorce.
So I did not drop a bomb on him. We'd been in therapy for several months beforehand where I told him several times I wanted a divorce.
You say it's not a bomb, but you agree with me that he begged you to reconsider.
He was very upset and, yes, wanted me to reconsider, but...
In that phone call, he's begging you to reconsider. Please don't leave. Please don't break up our family, right?
He was very upset, yes.
And he was heartbroken. I mean, upset indicates that there was anger. What he was heartbroken, right?
That I decided to divorce him after telling him I would, yes.
Despite being at NYU for a presentation, he rushes home. He gets on the next flight, right?
I honestly don't remember if he got on the next flight, but he did come home quickly.
2:30, he finds out in New York. By 11 p.m., he's walking in the door to your old house at Trescott Drive, right?
I don't know.
But you do know that when he walks in the house, what he finds. You know that, right?
Yes, I left him the papers.
You left the divorce papers on the bed, right?
Yes.
Half the furniture was gone.
Half the furniture was not gone.
A good amount of his stuff was gone.
Nothing of his was gone.
The boys' stuff was gone, right?
Some of the boys' things were gone. I'd taken enough so that I had for the boys, but no.
You were gone?
I was gone, yes.
And so were his boys.
His boys were not gone. He saw them the next day. and they would not have been awake if he's coming home at 11 p.m.
Let's stay on topic here.
When he walks
in the door, the boys are not in the house, right?
Correct.
And you did not tell Professor Markel where you were taking the boys. He may have seen them the next day, but you did not let him know where you were going to be staying with his boys.
With our boys? Yes.
So you agree with me that they're also his?
Of course they're his.
And he should be entitled to know where his wife is taking his children.
Absolutely.
That's not all you took, is it?
Excuse me?
You two had a joint checking account at Schwab, right?
We did.
And you went into that account before you dropped the bomb, and you took out half of that account, right?
Correct.
Roughly $350,000.
Half, yes. Of our joint account.
$350,000.
I don't remember the amount, but yes.
You know that it was in the hundreds of thousands.
I really don't remember the amount, sir.
Is it that insignificant of a sum to you that you
I'm
don't
not saying
remember?
it's an insignificant sum. I'm saying I can't attest to the amount that was there.
I'm going to tone it down. You were unhappy in the marriage, right?
That's why I got divorced, yes.
And it happens. Marriages fall apart, right?
Yes.
But you complained constantly about it, didn't you?
No, I don't think I complained constantly.
To anyone that would listen.
No, that's not true.
You agree with me that you complained to the one person that would actually do something about it.
I don't understand what you're asking.
Your big brother, Charles Adelson, you complained to him about how bad Professor Markel was and how much you hated him and didn't want to be in a marriage with him.
I definitely talked to my brother about how unhappy I was in my marriage. If that's the question, then yes. Is that the question?
Yes, that is a question. You talked to your brother, Charles Adelson, about how bad your marriage was.
I did, yes.
Let's talk about it. Government asked you about Charles Adelson. He's an intelligent guy, right?
He is smart.
Yeah. He's both book smart and street smart, right?
I would say so.
You would say that he's a talker.
He does like to talk.
He's got the gift of gab, so to speak.
I wouldn't say he's the gift of gab, but he does talk.
He knows what to say in the moment.
I wouldn't say that's true either.
You would say, though, that he is. Now, you were asked questions about, drug purchasing and stuff like that. You would agree with me that he's also street smart.
I mean, I think he has common sense.
And that he lives life to a certain extent on both sides of the track. During the day, he's doing periodontal work, whatever that is, crowns, root canals, whatever that is. He's doing that during the day. At night, he's out with friends, he's buying drugs. He's living life on both sides of the track.
I don't know about that he's out buying drugs.
Now, let's talk for a second about WhatsApp. And as an aside here for a second, the government asked you the question if you used WhatsApp, right? You remember that?
I remember them asking me, yes.
On the day that Professor Markel was killed, you went in for the interview, right?
I talked to the police.
And you also gave them your phone for them to inspect.
Absolutely.
So the determination of what, if any, WhatsApp was being used, they would have from the download they did that day of your phone.
Sure.
Now, would you be surprised to learn that your brother used WhatsApp?
No.
You would agree with me that WhatsApp, and you explained it well, is end-to-end encryption.
Correct.
In your lay opinion, if you can explain to the jurors, just in case they don't know, what that means.
I know that it's something we use at my work because essentially it has the ability to keep things more private. I also know that nothing's actually private and that anyone who wants to can uncode the messages. So that's what we tell people at our work.
So the thought is with WhatsApp, if I use my phone and I call somebody, the call could be listened to. If I text somebody, it's recordable, right?
I think so.
But with WhatsApp, you can send messages or have phone calls where there's no record of it.
I don't think that's true. I think there is still a record of it.
But the belief and the thought, I'll withdraw that question. Your lay understanding, though, is that the footprint that it leaves is much less than that of normal communications.
I think it's different, but I think it still leaves a digital footprint that's easily uncodable.
If you were to send a WhatsApp message to Ms. Kaplan, it would show that a message was sent, but it would be hard to get what the content of the message is.
I don't think that's true.
All right. Let's talk about your brother's jokes now. You don't deny that he joked about hiring a hitman.
He did.
You don't deny that he repeated this joke.
He did.
And he made this joke right before a hitman murdered Professor Markel.
I don't know that to be true.
Okay. He made the joke right before, and I'll leave out the hitman part, Professor Markel was killed.
He made the joke the morning that I talked to him.
Can you think of one person in this world that would actually hire two people to go kill Professor Markel other than your family?
Your Honor.
Ms. Adelson, please address me and answer the
It
question.
calls for an unbelievable amount of speculation. I mean, I'm responsible for coming up with, that's the prosecutor's duty, no? To figure out who's responsible.
You just said a moment ago that you disagree that hitmen killed Professor Markel. That's what you said, right? So my question to you is, if you're able to say, well, it wasn't hitmen, then who? Tell this jury. Who on this planet would have wanted to kill Professor Markel?
I have no idea.
All right. Let's get into that a little bit. But I want to make sure that's clear. This joke is made right before Professor Markel is murdered, right?
The joke was made many times.
It was made right before Professor Markel was murdered. Yes or no?
Yes.
July 18, 2014, you're interviewed, and you make a statement saying, I knew this would happen. You said that, right?
I did.
Now I want to talk about your knowledge and your belief on this. You're a smart person, right?
How am I supposed to answer that?
Well, let's go through your resume. You went to Brandeis University, right?
I did.
You graduated magna cum laude.
I did.
If you could explain to the jury what that means.
It means I studied a lot and got good grades.
It means, and to speak, I'm from the Northeast. My Boston accent may give it away. It means you're wicked smart, right?
That's very
You had a
nice.
high
Thank
GPA,
you.
a very high GPA.
I work hard.
You also went and you got a master's degree from the University of Cambridge.
I did.
You were a Gates Scholar.
I was.
You then go to the University of Miami School of Law, which is a top-tier law school, Tier 1, right?
Okay.
Right? We're talking about your level of intelligence. You went to the University of Miami Law School, right?
I did, yes.
You also clerked at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, right?
I did.
Now, to get a clerkship out of law school, it's a very difficult thing to do, right?
It's challenging.
You have to have top grades. You have to go through a rigorous selection process, right?
Yes.
You then become a professor at the Florida State University College of Law, right?
Yes.
You're also a published author. Right?
Now you're just embarrassing me.
Why are you embarrassed that you're a published author?
I don't like talking about myself.
Is it because the book that you wrote discredited Tallahassee and spoke ill of it?
The book did not discredit Tallahassee. It wasn't about Tallahassee.
Let's stay on topic and ask a question again with everything that we just went through. You're a smart woman, right?
I am a smart woman.
There's information about this case everywhere. You'd agree with me on that, right?
I'd been advised by my lawyer not to read it.
All right. Now, we're not talking about reading stuff. There's podcasts,
Also not to listen.
TV shows,
Also not to watch.
articles.
Don't read.
And so you've made the decision. Now, you're a lawyer yourself too, right?
I am.
And you made the decision, I'm not going to look at any of this stuff.
Correct.
I don't want to know what happened to the father of my 2 children.
Not I don't want to know what happened.
How can you say you love those boys if you don't care who killed the father that they loved?
Of course I care who killed the father that they loved.
Then why won't you look at the stuff?
I've been advised not to.
Are you afraid that when you look at it, you're going to realize that your brother did this?
I am not afraid of that.
Now, of course, you've, and we won't get into privileged communications, but you've spoken to your lawyer about the case.
How are we not getting into privileged communications? Yes, I've spoken to my lawyer about the case.
You're very intelligent. You have one of the top defense attorneys in the country, former federal prosecutor, John Lower, right there in the blue suit, right?
He is my attorney.
You're telling me with all of this at your disposal, your intelligence, his experience, and all this information, that you don't care to find out who it is that killed Professor Markel?
This is not that I don't care to find out. My job is to take care of those boys, and that is what I do. I don't see how it helps take care of them to go reading and watching and soaking up all of the horrible information that's out there.
You don't realize that you could be helpful in finally untangling this to give this jury the truth about what happened to Professor Markel?
I have been nothing but helpful since this started.
So what happened to their son? By you looking at it, you are at the center of all this, but you won't look at anything to help in the process.
I've done nothing but help in this process.
You came here and testified.
I came here and testified. I spoke to the police for 6 hours without anyone present. I signed over my cell phone, my car, my house, everything, my computer. What else do I have or know that you haven't seen?
You came here because you were subpoenaed and had no choice.
Correct.
Right?
This is not fun. I would not do this by choice.
You've been inconvenienced.
I've not been inconvenienced.
Professor Markel was shot in the head.
I'm not complaining about being here. This is my duty. I'm here.
We'll get back to you complaining about being here. Do you honestly expect this jury to believe that you haven't confronted your brother about all of this?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you did confront him?
Yes, I do expect them to believe that I did not confront my brother because I didn't.
Or maybe you don't need to because you know the truth in this case. You already know it. That he went behind your back, right?
Did not happen.
Just like he has done with past boyfriends. He's done that in the past where he's gone behind your back when you were having problems in a relationship and dealt with it himself.
No.
Miss Adelson, you understand that until you expose your brother what he did, that everybody's going to consider you as guilty. You understand that, right?
What is the question that you're asking me?
You understand that until you expose your brother and explain what he did, that he went behind everybody's back, that he hired a hitman to murder your ex-husband, you'll remain guilty in the eyes of the world.
I can't speak to the eyes of the world. I can only know that I have done nothing wrong.
Or maybe you are guilty.
I am not guilty.
So, a witness in this case, and I'm not going to get into their testimony, but one of the hitmen, the convicted hitman, implicates you. On July 17, 2014, the day before the murder, the morning before, he says that you were walking on Trescott with the two boys, that you walked down the driveway and into the house.
That never happened.
Right, because Professor Markel, he had the kids. Based on the way that your guy's schedule was, on that day he would have had the children in the morning, and you're going through such a bad divorce, you wouldn't be at his house, right?
I wouldn't be at his house anyway, but not because we were going through a bad divorce. At that time, things were pretty copacetic.
All right, so we're coming back to maybe you do know, or maybe you were involved.
Excuse me? What's the question that you're asking me?
I'm giving you a header of what we're talking about so that it will ease you in the question, okay? I'm just telling you what the topic that we're on, so we'll get to a question. Now, the government asked you about a time that you met Miss Magbano. It was actually spring break of March 2014, right?
I believe so.
You went down to Miami. You stayed with your brother, Charles.
I went down to Fort Lauderdale after being in Immokalee and stayed with my brother.
You then went to Miami Beach to Yardbird and had dinner outside with your boyfriend at the time, or who you were dating, Jeffrey Lacasse. Catherine McBanwell was there, and your brother, Charles Adelson, and you all ate outside, right?
We did.
And that's on Miami Beach, not in Fort Lauderdale.
Correct.
Now, just for context, Jeffrey Lacasse, he was also an FSU professor, not at the law school, but an FSU professor. Nice guy, right?
I don't think so now.
Now, you deny, I'm assuming, that on July 13, 2014, you told Jeffrey Lacasse that Charles looked into hiring a hitman. You deny that, or you admit that?
I deny that.
And that you told him that Charles looked into hiring a hitman back in September of 2013.
That never happened.
Which would have been months before your brother even met Catherine McBanwell.
I don't remember when they met.
Letting you know the topic we're on, we're talking about you being involved. That same week, earlier in the week, you sent an email. We're talking about the week of the murder now, not spring break, the week of the murder, not Yardbird, the week of the murder. You sent an email to Jeffrey Lacasse saying that you wanted to break up, that you needed space, right?
I did.
Sent him a long email. Stay away. or broke it up, right?
I did.
You knew that on July 18, 2014, Jeffrey Lacoste was leaving town to go on a trip, right?
I knew he was leaving at some point that week. I don't remember when.
You knew that he was leaving on the same day of the murder at the same exact time as the murder.
I don't think I did.
11 a.m. on July 18, 2014.
I don't think I knew when he was leaving town.
It's a good way to put the blame onto somebody else. You'd agree on that, right? If it happened, it would have been a good way to put the blame on somebody else.
I have no idea when he was going to leave town.
Your interview, July 18, 2014, you said, my brother, he joked about hiring a hitman. Perhaps that was you just planting a seed to divert the attention of law enforcement away from you.
It was not.
Let's jump off topic right now and talk about your boys' names. That in the time after the murder, you changed their last names from Markel to Adelson, right?
A year later, yes.
Why?
I was scared.
Of what?
Of someone coming to attack them.
So it's a year later, you won't look at anything because you don't want to know what's going on in the case. And the thought is, well, they're going to be protected if they have my last name and not Markel, right?
Yes.
Now, years later, arrests are made. It's clear who committed the murder, Sigfredo Garcia Luis Rivera. The Adelson name has been dragged through the mud. Why haven't you continued to protect your boys and changed the name back?
I will be changing I'm not going to change the name back. I don't think that will help. One day I'll change all of our names.
The government asked you about immunity, so let's get into that. You explained that as an attorney, you understand that when the government gives a subpoena for somebody to testify, that it conveys immunity, right?
That's my understanding. My knowledge of criminal law dates back to 2003 when I took a semester in law school. So forgive me.
Graduated law school, right?
This isn't my area of law.
When you clerked on the 11th Circuit, it was with Judge Jordan, right?
I did immigration appeals.
Yeah, but you still dealt with criminal stuff as well, too.
Very little.
So your understanding, though, is it doesn't mean they can't arrest you. They just can't use what you say here against you later on. So you're protected.
Correct.
And you needed that to testify, right?
It's just given to testify. It's not a question of whether I needed it. It comes with testifying.
You fear being charged by them, so you need to have that protection of your words.
I don't fear being charged for a crime I didn't commit, no.
Now, y'all had this nice exchange where it was pleasant, but there's actually tension between you and this office, right?
No.
They recently had your brother, Charles Adelson, arrested, and he's in custody, right?
Correct.
For first-degree murder.
Correct.
And there's no tension?
It's very uncomfortable to be here. It's hard to tell where the tension is coming from.
They've discussed your involvement in this case. They insinuated it on the direct examination. There's no tension?
Lots of media insinuates that I did something I didn't do, too. I can't feel tension towards every person in the world.
That's funny. I thought you didn't look at anything.
I don't. That's why.
But you know that you know about the media, but you don't know about the media?
I know about the media because it keeps me from employment. It keeps me from lots of things in my life. I'm aware of what's there, but I don't read the minutia so I can sleep at night.
Ms. Adelson, 5 minutes ago you said you don't look at any of that stuff.
I
now
don't
I asked you a
look at
question.
it.
Let me finish.
Sure.
5 minutes ago you say you don't look at any of that stuff. Now I ask you a question, you say you look at stuff.
That's not actually what I said. I said I'm aware that it exists, but I don't read it. I don't listen to it.
Then how do you know that they're bashing you?
You just told me they are.
I did?
Yeah.
How about this? We'll come back to it. You can think up a better answer, okay?
I'm not thinking up an answer. I'm telling you the truth. I'm sorry if you don't want to listen to it.
Your basic understanding of criminal law, though, you know that if the defense gives you a subpoena, you get no immunity.
Correct.
Correction, improper question.
I'm not going beyond that question.
All right, that's the only question you can ask on that.
If I give you a subpoena, you don't get immunity, right?
Correct.
Let's talk about your parents. The government asked you about your mother and father, Donna and Harvey, right? The government could do the same and subpoena them so that this jury can watch them get questioned, not nicely how Ms. Kaplan questioned you, but to be cross-examined by me.
Objection, improper question.
I'm going to sustain that. Ask a different question.
Are your parents here in Tallahassee right now?
No.
Are they back in Miami?
Yes.
Do they have any plans of coming here this week or next?
I don't think so.
Your family dynamic. It is your mother and father, Harvey and Donna. There's you, you're the youngest, Charles, and then the oldest, Robert. Right?
Correct.
And he's a doctor up in New York.
Correct.
Now, the government asked you about the relationship, and you're like, we don't talk much. It's actually much deeper than that with Robert, isn't it?
We don't talk
At all.
at all.
And the reason is because your parents were so difficult about the woman that is now his wife.
That is not the reason why we don't talk.
I'm not talking about the reason why you don't talk. Let me clarify. The reason why your parents don't talk to him.
That's not the reason why they don't talk to him.
Are you saying to this jury that there wasn't a problem where they outright objected to his marriage of a woman that was not of the Jewish faith?
That was initially what happened, and then there was actually a beautiful reconciliation, and they're very happy about the marriage.
Robert and his wife, not your family.
Robert and his wife and our family were very happy about Robert's marriage.
So what happens is that Robert is in love with a woman. Your parents object. He breaks up with her and then dates a Jewish woman, right?
And then they got married and divorced, and then he got back together with the person he wanted to be married to. Yes.
With his true love.
Yes.
But there was a lot of tension in your family because of your family's involvement in the kids' marriages, right?
Yes.
Let's talk briefly about your children. The government had asked you in the topic of the Jewish faith, keeping kosher. You mentioned a bat mitzvah at one point in time. You're currently planning a bat mitzvah for your oldest, right?
No, it already happened.
Okay, now that is a very, Christopher, I'm obviously not Jewish, but my understanding is that it is a very, very important thing in the Jewish faith.
It's a very important milestone.
And for those that are very conservative in the Jewish faith, those that keep kosher, so to speak, it's even bigger.
I don't know that it's more important to one segment of Judaism over another, but it's an important coming of age ceremony.
It's where a boy becomes a man. Did you invite Dan Markov's parents, the kid's grandparents?
I did.
You invited them?
I invited them, yes.
When was the last time they saw face-to-face their grandchildren?
April 20th.
Of this year?
Just now.
And you agree with me that it had been years since 2016, since the last time they had seen them?
The visit stopped when they threatened to put my children in foster care, yes. But up until that point, they did have visits.
You got no problem letting them see your brother Charles, right?
I'm sorry?
You have no problem letting them hang out with your brother Charles, who's now sitting in custody for first-degree murder.
Oh, they can't see him now, can they?
No, they can't, but I'll ask the questions. For years, they weren't able to see their grandchildren despite their pleading to you to see them. But you let me finish. But you let them hang out with your murdering brother, right?
The children were permitted to see their grandparents. I cooked for them. We had play dates. They had sleepovers. When a letter surfaced that they were trying to have my children placed in foster care, the visits stopped. My brother never threatened to put my children in foster care, and if he had, the visits would have stopped with him too.
You say you love your boys.
I do say I love my children.
Don't care about the father that they love.
I never said that I don't care about the father that they love.
Then look at some of the discovery and help figure it out.
Excuse me?
Then look at some of the evidence and help figure it out so that more lives aren't ruined by this.
I seem to not understand.
You need to ask a question now. You're making statements now. You need to ask a question.
Understood, Your Honor. If I could have one brief second to check with co-counsel. Ms. Adelson, we started this by saying that this is all about you. It started with you because of this marriage, right?
No. Well, you had tried to say that, but I don't agree.
Ms. Adelson, I'm going to make one final attempt through questions to implore you. You understand that you can't protect your brother Charles, who's going through this case, and protect yourself at the same time. You understand that, right?
I'm here to share the truth with you. I don't know how to answer the question.
Then please end the madness and share the truth. Will you please share the truth with this jury?
I've been sharing the truth since I walked in here. I've done nothing but share the truth.
You know what happened here, despite your claims to the jury that you haven't looked at anything, you haven't discussed with anybody, and you haven't confronted your brother. You know what happened here, right?
I do not know what happened here, and if I did, I would have shared it with the police 8 years ago.
You know that your brother went behind your back, don't you?
I do not.
Like he always does. This is something that he has always done, isn't it?
It is not.
You found out after that your brother had done this and gone behind your back. That's why you were thrown up at that dinner, right?
No, it's not.
You know that it didn't involve Katie either, right?
I don't know anything about...
If you're not going to say all of that and finally give the truth, why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty?
Because I'm not guilty.
A brief moment, John. I got nothing further.
Redirect.
Adelson, you were asked about the reason why you stopped contact for a period of time between your ex-husband's parents and your children.
Yes.
And you referenced a letter that you characterized as the grandparents threatening to put the children into foster care. Is that an email that was sent from the Markells to my office?
Yes.
Okay. And that was in reference to, in the event that you and the people that care for these children, who at the time were very young, were arrested, that the grandparents wanted to make sure, because they live in Canada, right?
They do.
They wanted to make sure that a specific organization could be contacted to care for the children so that someone was there to care for them until a relative could get there.
I don't
Right?
remember the bit about a relative getting there.
Okay, well, they weren't just going to leave them in foster care, right?
I don't know.
Okay. But the specific nature of the email, you will agree, was in the event that there's some kind of mass arrest, because they don't know who's getting ready to go to jail next, right? I mean, they're not privy to the investigation any more than you are, right? Law enforcement investigations, they're secret.
Sure.
Okay. And their concern, would you agree that concern ultimately in the email was for the care of the children?
The concern was to make sure the children were under good care, but as their mother, I know they're always under good care with me.
Right, but
and there's no need for foster care.
The email contemplated you not being available to care for them.
That's not possible.
Because it's not possible for you to get arrested.
Correct. Because I've done nothing wrong and I believe in our justice system.
Okay. Well, just wanted to clarify the nature of that. In this case, you were asked about, why aren't your parents coming to testify? You, as you mentioned, gave a police interview in this case, right?
Correct.
And consented to the search of your phone, etc. You gave testimony in this case, right?
Yes.
All right. And your parents did not, correct?
They did not give testimony.
They have not testified. They have not given a
police to
police...
come testify, but they would if they were asked.
Okay. And have they given any police interviews?
They would have, but the police never contacted them.
The police did contact them, didn't they? And they refused.
No.
Are they represented by counsel?
They are represented by counsel.
And they'll come testify if we want them to.
If they are under state subpoena, just like I was, they would come testify.
All right. And do you know what they would testify to?
They would testify to whatever they know.
And do you know what they know?
I have no idea what they know.
Okay. They've never told you?
No.
You've never asked them?
No.
Because you never had any conversations with them about this murder?
I've been advised by my counsel not to.
All right. So nobody, including your brother Charlie, has admitted or denied to you any involvement in the murder one way or the other?
Correct.
Same with your parents?
Correct.
One moment, please, Your Honor.
Okay.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank
You want a subject to recall?
No, sir. She's free to go about her business.
All right, you're free to go. Thank you. All right, let's put Ms. Rodriguez back on the stand and complete her cross-examination at this point. Mr. DaCosta, you prepared for that?